Thank you all for agreeing to join me and help me out. And the way this is supposed to work, just your feedback is going to be beneficial. So I'm going to share my screen just so we can see the results from the survey that everybody did yesterday. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. So the purpose of this survey is just kind of planning moving forward for professional development and kind of thinking about what's most beneficial for professional development and you know, what's going to benefit you guys in each different aspect of the school, because I was fortunate enough that all of you kind of represent different parts of the school, with special education, with the STEM and library, and then Miss Murray with science and representing all schools in the all three schools, and then Miss Simpson with a classroom teacher. So that's good for your guys' feedback. Okay, so you know, first just looking at the importance of professional development, and everybody sees it as important. I think probably some of those fours were, I don't know, what would y'all say a reason would be for giving a 4 instead of a 5?
All right, I
Hello?
cannot,
Oh.
let me switch. How can I move you? Because I cannot see the 5. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Right, wait.
Well, for me, I would say the importance of professional development as it impacts your instruction. I think the reason that some people would have rated it a 4 versus a 5 is if they felt like, you know, they were already proficient in a lot of the areas based on the professional development that we've had, you know, in the year prior. They may have been pulling from that and felt like they were proficient in a lot of those areas, that therefore the professional development didn't really impact their instruction. So that could have been a reason. So I think that's probably it, proficiency in particular areas, or if they felt like the professional development that was provided wasn't tailored to them.
Right.
And I was going to say too, Blair, that a lot of times special ed professional development is different than you guys. We don't necessarily talk about the same topics that you guys do. So it's kind of, you know, I look at professional development kind of differently than the normal classroom teacher would.
That's true. And I think we'll see in the other results that it's most beneficial when it directly impacts you and your instruction. And so a lot of times the professional development is broad, and that may not be as meaningful as some more individualized instruction. Okay, so that was the next question. You know, what type of professional development do you feel is most beneficial? And very, you know, widely, the selection was those PLCs. And I think we saw through our professional development this year that doing those PLCs that targeted specific topics was most beneficial. And then the one that's the next on the list with the most votes was coaching, which is also individualized. So I think there's a common theme there. When you're getting your professional development, you want it to be more meaningful for you, of course, but you want it to be tailored to the things you want to apply in your classroom. Okay, so the next question was more about, you know, the topics and the areas. The one with the most votes was computational thinking, and then reading instruction. And I think we know that reading instruction is going to be a topic in several of these questions because we're transitioning to that reading class next year. And everybody really has questions and doesn't know what it's going to look like. And you think about, you know, if I'm a math teacher and I've never taught reading before, what is that going to look like? How am I going to do that? So I think that, that'll probably be a focus. What about computational thinking? Why do you think there were so many votes there?
I think that people are still not as comfortable with it. And how do I apply it in my content area? I think that, examples have been given, but yet 1 or 2 examples is not enough to sustain you, as you are trying to consistently apply it throughout the school year. A lot of times people don't have the time to go out and find, lessons to bring in. And so I think that could definitely be one of the reasons why.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it's hard to visualize that unless you have, numerous examples.
And with special ed, we have to look at something that may be 2 or 3 grade levels below where they actually are grade level wise. So how do I do computational thinking in my small group special ed remedial classes when I don't have any examples necessarily, or very few examples of how that's implemented in the classroom? Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think when STEM was new, that was the focus, and computational thinking is kind of the new thing that we're hearing from the central office. So, we've got to be intentional about making sure everybody knows how it's applied in all content areas. Okay, so this, kind of just relates to the question before also, but it's more your opinion. How would you prefer to get your professional development throughout the school year? And, these were kind of all over the place, but, related to what we've already talked about. The instructional coaching and the monthly PLCs had the most votes. And we know that that's going to be most beneficial because it's individualized or tailored to your content area or what you're doing in the classroom. So I think it goes to say that more options are going to be better, especially in a school where we have, 1 science teacher per grade level. We have 1 math teacher per grade level. So because we don't have, just 8 third grade teachers, you don't all need the same thing. So I think more individualized is necessary in a middle school or a high school even.
Okay, so are they looking at, because what you just said, right, we only have 1 science teacher in the 7th grade, but about doing some professional development with all of the 7th grade science teachers then across the county to collaborate?
That would be ideal. Over the past couple of years, I guess, Ms. Simpson, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but there has been the cohort with science teachers
Right.
because we got that grant with computational thinking, so they were able to come together, but that was only science teachers. So we didn't, I think last year we had a math teacher cohort. So the difficult part with county-wide PLCs is money, of course. So that is ideal, but they are getting, Ms. Harris is getting a lot of feedback from schools on what they want for professional development. So I'm thinking, she hasn't said this, but I'm thinking she's going to be more intentional on tailoring county-wide PLCs to what the schools want and need, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you are correct. Well, we worked for the last 2 years on those different science cohorts. And it was, like you said, I think the problem was, funding and everything. We only had half days. And we met according to grade levels. And so, it was good for that, but that doesn't give you a lot of time, to meet together and to plan. So I think ideally being able to meet and, have a full day of planning and working together would be a lot more beneficial.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the last kind of question, and who do you prefer your professional development be led by? And the most people said the instructional coach. And what do you think is most beneficial with having the instructional coach leading those professional development opportunities?
A lot of times the instructional coaches are the ones that get the information from the central office, correct?
Right.
I mean, that's like where you got your information. So it's coming directly down the line from what our system and our county expects us to do. So you've had not firsthand knowledge from them on how to implement it, I guess.
And
Right, Wilkie. Oh, yeah, I think you're right, Wilkie, because, right, since we're not getting together across the entire county, that instructional coach can bring that information to the school. So all the schools at least have that common information.
right.
But you've given it all to the instructional coaches, so all the instructional coaches are coming back to their individual schools and telling the same information.
Yes.
So at some point, we're all on the same page with
Yes.
how things are supposed to be implemented. That's what I
And
was
with the
thinking.
instructional coaches, participating in the admin meetings and
Yes.
everything, that's very important because you're getting the same exact information that they're getting from the administrators' meetings, as well as from, your meetings as instructional coaches, district-wide.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I think this also connects to people wanting more individualized PD also, because it is going to relate countywide, but that instructional coach also knows what you need in your classroom, in your school. So we can kind of filter out what you don't need,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Thompson was probably a great example of that with Steffens the last couple years. I mean, you've really given him some individualized attention, and I think it's been very beneficial.
Right.
I mean, he's becoming an amazing teacher because he's had that individualized help the last couple years.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of relates back to that. And there were lots of comments on, what made good professional development and what you don't want. And of course, we don't want sit and get and just talking and, just sitting and listening. And so I think through what we've all discussed so far, it's obvious that you want time to collaborate. You want time with meaningful information that applies to you. You want time to plan. And I think that a lot of times when we we lose time in our professional development, we push the planning part to the side, and you're like, oh, you can do that later. When really, that's what everybody is there for, is to be able to collaborate and plan. So I think that's something to consider in moving forward with planning for professional development, is making sure the most amount of time is spent collaborating and planning.
And getting to collaborate with everybody from a special ed standpoint, I need to know what my general ed teachers are doing, what content's being taught and what strategies they're being used, so that that's a fluid continuation into my resource classes. Like, I need to know what Ms. Simpson's doing in her classroom so that I can kind of tailor what I'm doing with them to help her and collaborate with her in what's best for students. Does that make sense? So I like the collaboration with everyone involved in the whole process, talking, planning, those kinds of things. So
Yeah, I'm really bad about it. If I don't plan right there, then I kind of put it off.
Yep.
And then I forget what I'm supposed to do. And then it's like, let me just throw something down because I don't have time to really think about it.
And you don't have that opportunity to come back together. So then you're left planning by yourself.
mm-hmm.
Right, yeah.
Well, right now, because it's summer, our current professional development offerings, there are a few through the county, but they're very individualized. I think some special ed meetings and some social studies history meetings, some math meetings, I think, are taking place. And then we also have Amstein Montebello is offering PD. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there that, right now you really can choose what you learn. There are those opportunities out there. Through the comments, I think not everybody, but a lot of people really had questions about the second period reading class. What are your opinions as far as, do you think that should be a major focus for our professional development as we start back to school? I don't know, none of you are reading teachers, so it will be beneficial for me to kind of hear what you're thinking with that.
I think that
I'd like to know, like, what materials are we expected to use? Are we doing iReady reading information, or can we pull our own resources to use? What is the expectation of material? Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
or if my kids are on 3rd grade reading level, am I pulling 3rd grade material, or am I pulling 7th grade material?
Right.
Because I think they're grouped by ability.
They are. Yep.
By their iReady scores. So I guess my question would be, what material would we use, and what's the what word am I thinking of? The structure.
Expectation, like
An expectation.
Mhm.
Structure, expectation. Is it a graded, am I supposed to give grades every week, every day, every month? Is that grade based on the iReady path? Is that grade based on another
is it
criteria?
based on performance or participation?
Yeah.
I have the same questions. I think that we should have some PD, but I think the PD should be geared towards the expectations. Like, what is it going to look like? And what are the students going to be expected to do during that time? What are we expected to provide, and what are we expected to do for them? So in terms of the actual reading instruction, I think that, is it going to be more like literacy block was with small groups? Is it going to be whole group? What are we expected to provide and to do? And like she said, with the resources, are we?
If it's a participation grade versus an actual performance grade, are the kids going to put as much emphasis into it and effort into it if they know it's just a participation grade?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
And I don't know if we'll ever get back to how the library used to be, but there are some kids that still love to have a book in their hand and know that they have a choice to read whatever they want to, instead of being told that they have to read certain books. And I just think that over the past 2 or 3 years, we've kind of just dropped the ball, I guess, and everything's been digital, and the kids are forced to read, stuff
Right.
that they wouldn't necessarily choose. So I would like, if it's possible, to incorporate books. Give them a choice that if they would
Right.
like to come get a book, that would be an option
Right.
during that second period reading class. Because I have ordered a lot of new titles and things, even though it looks like we have nothing in the library. There still are those handful of kids that really like having books.
Yeah.
So I would like to hopefully talk Miss Carter into letting that be part of the second period, because I've really missed that.
That's on my list.
And two, Blair, I was seeing, when I did the literacy block out of the iReady reading workbooks, the kids would get so bored with those stories, and they weren't putting the most effort into it because the stories were not something that interests them. You see what I'm
Well,
saying?
and some of them had done, like, I know some of my 6th graders had already done some of those passages.
Yeah.
So, you know, they were like, oh, we did this last year. And I didn't believe them at first until we started doing it. I was like, yeah, y'all have done this.
Yeah.
That is
They were bored with it.
I don't know that my kids were very gung-ho about a workbook, if that makes sense. Like, do page 3 of your work, you know what I mean? I think that if they had more choice and more option in terms of the topics that they get to read about, the format in which they get to read, that would be helpful too, if they want a hard book or if they want, you know.
What if we did something similar to what we did for 7th period? Kind of similar, you know, to like the math menu or whatever, where you have, you know, your must-dos for the week and then your choice opportunities. So like you could have your must-dos would be maybe small group and iReady, and then your choices be, you know, individualized reading options, or maybe even throw in some art. Because I know a lot of kids that really like to read, but they draw the story in the book better than they can write it, if that makes sense.
Also,
kind of a reading response type thing, like I know they do in elementary school, but you kind of have those options to illustrate or write about it, or, you know.
Also, I had a lot of
Could be a
kids
graphic
last year
organizer.
in my 7th period. You know, we had 45 minutes of reading and 45 minutes of math, and they would do 45 minutes, but they would just either open the screen up and sit there, and I would have to stay on them about, you know, getting, or they would just click to get through, and then it's not a true representation, and nor have they learned anything from the lesson, because they were just okay, you want me 45, and as soon as they hit 45 minutes, they were done.
Right. Well, I guess my biggest question is, do you think teachers are going to want to pull their own resources for small group? Yeah, I don't think so either. So Ready really is the option
It's
for
the
small
ready-made.
group. But I think if there are more options for students outside of small group, maybe that will help with the boredom.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay.
I think
I
that
hate
Newsella was good.
Yeah.
And it provided a good small group option for us, because when you give them the passage, they read the passage, they answer the questions, but it's content that is engaging. It's, you know, things that they are interested in reading.
What was
and
that,
then they
Ms.
do the
Simpson?
quiz. The Newsella.
The Newsella, okay.
When we had the
Yeah,
Newsella
or,
Pro, because you can, what I would do with it is I would take the quiz, and in small group, we would all go over those quiz answers together. So, you know, they had a passage or an article, they would read, and it was an engaging article. And then they would take the quiz, and I would look, you know, on my dashboard and see who scored, you know, below like a 70 on the quiz, and then I'd pull them back. You know, my 70s and 60s would come back, and then 50s and below would all come back together, and we would talk about the answers that they had and why.
Right.
Actively Learn is another good resource that's very similar to that, and I think it would be appealing to teachers who don't typically teach reading to incorporate. I don't know, they could choose a passage that is related to whatever they are teaching, you know, history or science passage or whatever, and that may kind of take some of the, I don't know how to teach reading for some, you know, some teachers who are not accustomed to teaching it.
That's true.
Because I know when I taught reading, that's what I did. Like I did history, science, and reading in one through, you know, through Actively Learn or Newsella or whatever.
Are we going to have Newsella next year? I mean, the pro version or just the regular version, Claire?
Probably not. I don't know. Probably
Okay.
not. I know it's on the top of a lot of your lists. We are not going to continue with Suite 360, so it could be I just don't know. I don't know how our money's going to sort out.
Okay.
But it's on my list.
I knew that C. Smith had used the pro version.
Yes, she
before,
loves
and
it.
She loves it as far as content and ability to pull
Well,
different information. So I was
Well,
just
that's what I
curious.
was about to say. You know, the best thing about it is the passage. You can give, I mean, the article, you can give the kids all the same article, but the article is based on their reading level.
Right.
So, you know, that's what is, to me, the best thing about it, is it's based on where they are.
Yeah.
So
It's definitely something I'm going to work on. I just don't know how our
And
money's going to shake out.
Is the structure of the second period just an extension of literacy block?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of what it's going to be based on. And that's what I was thinking about. Do y'all think we probably need to, even if it's just a Zoom, kind of inform everybody of this reading class before we start back to school?
it
Or
doesn't
just
matter.
wait?
I don't think that it's gonna matter. Like
Okay.
we're going to have to do it. And
I think everybody
don't
already
think-
knows.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't see people, because we don't know what it looks like, I don't see people trying to prepare and plan
Okay.
in advance, because they don't know what to plan for. So just
Right.
telling them that it's going to be there.
Well, and I'm basically going to do most of the planning for you, because it's basically just going to be a certain structure. So, you know, okay, that makes me feel better that y'all feel like you kind of know, so you're not really worried about it. Okay. Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you so much for jumping on and giving this feedback. I've got a lot that I can run with and kind of plan for moving into whenever we get to come back to school.
Right.